All right, so we got to talk about this AI stuff. I mean, things are moving so fast. It feels like just yesterday, all the big AI news was coming out of the U.S. OpenAI, Google, Microsoft. They were the ones constantly making headlines.
Yeah, for sure.
But this week, you sent me some articles, and it seems like China's really stepping up their game.
Definitely. It's been clear for a while that China's serious about becoming a global leader in AI. They've been putting a lot of resources into it, and now with Baidu's announcement of their new ERNIE models, ERNIE 4.5 and X1, it looks like those investments are starting to pay off.
Right, exactly. And one of the articles you sent over really emphasized Baidu's position as like China's Google,
Right.
which I think is really helpful context here. And now this Chinese Google is saying that their ERNIE models can actually be better than the leading AI models, the ones we've been talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And they're saying they could do it at like half the cost.
Yeah, that's a pretty bold claim. And it makes you wonder if we're seeing a real shift in the AI landscape. For a while it's been the US leading the way, but could this be the start of a more, I don't know, a more multipolar world in terms of AI development?
Okay, so that's what we're going to really try to dig into in this deep dive. We're going to look at all this material you've bent over and really try to understand what makes these ERNIE 4.5 and ERNIE X1 models so special.
Yeah.
How do they actually work? How do they compare to the big names like GPT-4 and Gemini? And are there any caveats we need to keep in mind as we assess all this?
Right, good questions. And it's important to remember that Baidu isn't exactly a newcomer here. I mean, they've been a major player in China's tech scene for years. They've already got a ton of experience in AI research. These new ERNIE models are just the latest step in their journey.
Okay, so let's start with ERNIE 4.5. One of the article actually broke down what ERNIE stands for. Enhanced Representation through K-Knowledge Integration.
Okay.
Sounds pretty complex, right? But basically, it seems like Baidu's positioning this model as their answer to GPT-4 and Gemini, which have been kind of the gold standard, at least so far.
Right, yeah. And one of the things that really jumps out about ERNIE 4.5 is that it's not just focused on text like some of the earlier language models.
Oh, yeah, one of the things I'd done really interesting in these reports was this idea of ERNIE 4.5 being multimodal, meaning it can work with all sorts of data text, images, videos, audio. It's not just a chatbot. It's more like it can understand and analyze information in all these different forms.
Mm-hmm.
So like you could have it analyze, I don't know, a presentation that has visuals and spoken words,
Right.
or you could talk to it like a regular AI assistant, but also show it things and it would understand.
And that opens up a lot of possibilities, right? I mean, think about all the different ways we communicate and share information.
And get this, apparently ERNIE 4.5 is also really good at understanding more complex stuff like, internet memes, sarcasm, even like satirical cartoons. That suggests a deeper level of understanding, going beyond just the literal meaning of words.
Exactly. It's about understanding context and culture, picking up on all those subtle cues that we use in human communication. It's getting closer to how we actually talk and think.
Yeah, and it doesn't stop there. Several reports mention Baidu claiming big improvements in ERNIE 4.5 memory. Basically, it's supposed to be able to remember past conversations better, which means it can have more consistent and relevant interactions over time.
Oh, interesting. So it can kind of build up a history with you and use that to give you better responses. That's definitely a step towards more useful AI assistance.
And here's the kicker, the thing that could really shake things up. Cost. Baidu's claiming that ERNIE 4.5 performs just as well as DeepSeek R1, another really advanced AI, but it costs half as much to deploy. If that's true, it could make a huge difference in who has access to these kinds of powerful AI tools.
Absolutely. That kind of cost saving could be a real game changer for businesses, researchers, anyone wanting to use cutting edge AI. It makes it a lot more accessible.
So what we've got here, based on these articles, is a potentially really powerful, versatile AI, smarter, more capable, and crucially, cheaper to run. ERNIE 4.5 could be a real contender.
Yeah, it sounds promising for sure. But now let's shift gears a bit and talk about ERNIE X1. This one seems to be a bit more specialized.
Right, so ERNIE 4.5 seems like a more general-purpose model, kind of like a jack-of-all-trades. But the material you sent suggests that ERNIE X1 is more focused on reasoning tasks. It's all about logic and decision-making.
Yeah, it sounds like they've designed it specifically to analyze data, solve problems logically, and make decisions based on that analysis. That's a really valuable skill set for AI.
Think about how that could apply to, I don't know, your work. We're talking about an AI that could analyze financial reports, legal documents, all those complex data sets, and draw meaningful conclusions.
Absolutely. That could be huge for research, strategic planning, really any field where you need to make sense of large amounts of data. And according to your sources, Baidu's saying it can do all of that at a fraction of the cost of comparable models.
Right. Just like with ERNIE 4.5, they're claiming that ERNIE X1 matches the performance of DeepSeek R1, but at a much lower price point. It's like getting the brains without the huge price tag.
So it seems like ERNIE 4.5 is more like your versatile NI assistant, while ERNIE X1 is the specialist, kind of like a superpowered analyst able to handle complex information and make logical inferences.
Okay, so now the big question. How do these new ERNIE models stack up against the current top dogs, GPT-4 and Gemini?
Well, based on everything you've shared, it sounds like Baidu thinks they've got a real shot at competing with the best. Their reported performance numbers, plus the cost advantage, it all suggests that they could shake things up.
Yeah, I mean, if they can really deliver on their promises, matching or even beating the top models while also being cheaper, that could really force everyone in the industry to reevaluate the playing field.
But, and this is a big but, I think we got to be a little cautious here. I mean, these are all claims from Baidu themselves. We need independent verification, standardized tests, real world comparisons to really see how they measure up against GPT-4 and Gemini.
Right, right. Baidu's results are definitely interesting, but we need to see how these ERNIE models perform outside of Baidu's labs, how they handle real-world tasks and interact with users in different contexts.
Exactly. And that kind of leads into some of the limitations we need to think about. One big one that came up in a lot of the articles is that right now, these models aren't really available outside of China.
Yeah, that limited access is definitely a factor. It could slow down global adoption and make it harder to get that independent testing we were just talking about.
It also means that developers and researchers in other countries can't really experiment with these models, at least not yet. That could affect how much impact they have in the short term.
And we got to remember, all those impressive performance claims still need to be proven in real-world situations. It's one thing to do well in a controlled environment, but it's another thing entirely to see how they handle the messiness of the real world.
Right, and that's especially important when comparing them directly to those Western AI models. We need to see them side by side, tackling the same tasks under the same conditions to really get a sense of how they compare.
Okay, so big picture, what's the main takeaway here?
Well, I think it's pretty clear that the AI world is becoming a lot more competitive, and China, with Baidu leading the charge, is becoming a serious force to be reckoned with.
Totally agree. OpenAI and Google, they're not the only game in town anymore. China's catching up fast, and these new ERNIE models are a testament to that.
And if those claims about performance and cost turn out to be true, and we see these models being used more widely, it could really change the whole AI landscape. More affordable access to advanced AI could have a massive impact.
So what does this all mean moving forward? Could ERNIE AI eventually become a major player globally, alongside or even replacing some of the big names where it needs to? It's definitely a question worth considering.
Yeah, no doubt. This is a space to watch closely, that's for sure.
And it makes you think about all the implications of this shift. What happens when there are more players in the AI game? More innovation, maybe lower cost, but also potentially more complexity. And what about the ethical considerations? How do we ensure responsible development and use of AI as this technology becomes more widespread and accessible?
All really important questions. And the answers are likely to evolve as the technology itself continues to evolve.
So as you continue to follow this AI story, keep these things in mind. This is just the beginning. The world of AI is constantly changing, and we'll be here to explore all the exciting new developments.
Absolutely.
So stay curious, folks, and keep exploring the fascinating world of AI.